On a crisp night in the middle of Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, a few thousand people assembled from more than 50 countries around the world for an extraordinary party. The king was there, so was the crown prince, and leaders of industry, the arts, and global dignitaries. But what was most amazing was that the foreign visitors were there at all. How did that happen? Earlier this year, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia did the unthinkable and the unexpected. For the first time in the 89-year history of the kingdom, they literally opened the doors, granting visas to citizens of more than 49 countries, and in the process, opening the country itself. Now the real question is, are they ready? It's all happening because Saudi Arabia is now betting on a new commodity, tourism, which represents a radical change for the kingdom. But first, some history. As it became a more traditionally structured country, Saudi Arabia shut itself off from most non-Muslim visitors to help secure their strict conservative values. In recent years, few were allowed into the kingdom, and those included only Saudi expatriates, some business people working in the country, and of course, Muslims on religious pilgrimage. Now they've opened tourism to citizens from 49 countries, including the United States, Canada, most European countries, and even China. Visitors granted visas are able to travel freely throughout the country, with few restrictions. Non-Muslims are still barred from the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. As the kingdom prepares for this influx of visitors, the Saudis must analyze their infrastructure, looking at accommodations, restaurants, transportation, and more. All this plays against the country's history. Although Saudi Arabia is a relatively young country, its people have lived here nomadically for thousands of years. And Saudi Arabia, as it's known today, developed in the 20th century with the rise of the Saud family, the Najdi group, from which the country derives its name. But there are some who say the country's existed much longer.
It was established 300 years ago, not 89 years, because the first Saudi state, where they came in 1744 and lived in this UNESCO listed heritage site, founded the first Saudi state, and we are in the third Saudi state. We have assessed all the destinations in Saudi Arabia. We looked at the historical sites and the adventure sites, and we found 10,000 sites.
Among those are 5 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. There's the Al-Hijr Archaeological Site, Jeddah with the Gate to Makkah, the rock art in the Hale region, and the Al-Asa Oasis. And then there's Diriyah, the site of the big opening party. Just a few miles away from the country's capital city of Riyadh, Diriyah is considered by many to be the birthplace of the Arabian Peninsula and the foundation of Saudi Arabia. Jerry Anzarillo, a legendary American hotelier, was hired by the royal family to restore, preserve, and develop the site.
Diriyah is where the Saudi state started. Nothing more culturally important than this. And at one time, in the last 300 years, over 30,000 people lived in mud houses in this city on the famous oasis, the Wadi Hanifa.
In fact, the city of Diriyah is said to date back to 1446. Over the years, it's been settled by different tribes and at the center of many battles.
It was destroyed by different conquests. And then about 25 years ago, when His Majesty was governor, he said, "This is the ancestral home of the kingdom. I want to restore it."
This was no easy feat. Every effort was made to respect the sacred site, including restoring it through traditional craftsmanship.
This is mud and clay and straw. So we had to take all the great Saudi artisans in that craft. They all came, everything was satellite Google checked, everything was measured, and they reconstructed the entire city, mud brick by mud brick, the same way they did it 300 years ago.
After nearly 25 years of painstaking restoration of the project, which spans more than 7 square kilometers, Diriyah was finally being unveiled to new visitors.
In Vision 2030, it's one of the principal projects to allow Diriyah to become one of the great gathering places of the world.
opening up the location to the rest of the world, including sharing some of their traditional crafts, such as al-sadu, a traditional and UNESCO-registered form of weaving, coffee making, and demonstrations of how the Naji built mud houses using trees, logs, stones, and mud. There were also displays from the first Saudi state, such as children singing songs from that era, and a processional reflecting ancient tribal response to the Imam's call of war around the Arabian Peninsula. And as night fell, the sky literally lit up. And in attendance, both King Salman bin Abdulaziz and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in an unusual public appearance together, marking another historic event for the Saudis. Thousands of distinguished guests were there for the show, which included a traditional arda, a folkloric sword dance performed by tribesmen before going to war or to celebrate victory with their leader. This was perhaps the largest arda ever assembled, more than 700 people. And the pyrotechnics, provided by New York's Gucci family, flown in for the occasion, the same team that produces the legendary Macy's 4th of July fireworks in New York. It was truly an event fit for a king. But the opening of Diriyah and other sites to the rest of the world is just one of the many changes the country is experiencing, going from a closed country to a Formula E race, complete with Saudi Air Force flyby, a World Heavyweight Championship bout, artist Pitbull performing. It's almost unimaginable, against a tense and sad backdrop. Massive change is occurring in the face of the elephant very much in the room, the still fresh memory of the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi, a little more than a year ago, leading to 5 people in Saudi Arabia being sentenced to death. And many Western observers still label the sentence a mockery of justice. At the same time, the Khashoggi case hasn't slowed down the tourism development.
That was a real heartbreak for everyone. But in tourism, our job is to welcome everybody. Our job is to make sure that when people come here, they see Saudi food and Saudi dance and Saudi music, Saudi hospitality, the beautiful weather, the beautiful scenery. Our job is to welcome, and then we know that the justice system will take care of itself.
The Khashoggi case has also not slowed down outside demand for Saudi Arabia. The country has been issuing an average of 55,000 visas per week, and that number continues to grow.